Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to take a look at this Sanyo personal radio cassette player, and this is the MG32. It's basically a kind of an upgrade from the MG12 that I've got here, except for the fact it has the radio built in. Now, features wise, it's quite a nice little piece of kit, to be honest. It's solidly built. It's not massive in size, but it feels quite heavy. As I say, you've got your AM FM radio built in there, but also it's quite a nice little tape player, to be honest. You've got your transport buttons on the side here: play, stop, fast forward and rewind, with your tuning dial for the radio with a really nice sort of feedback in terms of the dial cord on there. Now you've got a belt clip on there as well, so you can use that on the go, or just remove that if you wanted to lay it flat on a desk to listen at home. Single headphone socket. Now you've got a master volume control just on the top there, and also a balance left and right potentiometer just on the top. Also a sort of a EQ switch, if you like. It's basically a high and low tone just on there. And then you've got a mute switch for reducing. It doesn't really mute the signal per se, but it attenuates it to a level where you can actually hear what's going on outside, even if you've got your headphones on, by temporarily sort of pressing that momentary switch just there. Then you've got your LED status light to tell you when the unit's actually in operation. On the side just here, we've got your band selection, so your AM, FM and indeed your FM stereo. And then your master function sliders on the side just there, tape and radio, 6-volt DC negative pin if you wanted to run it off a mains adapter, or indeed 4 batteries, as I've got in there at the moment, just about to test it. Now, I'm actually preparing one for a customer at the moment, and this is quite a nice example. Great little unit, as I say, anti-rolling mechanism, dual flywheel, lovely piece of kit, and it does actually come with a case as well, this one, so it's quite a nice little bit of kit to have, so it keeps it nice and clean and tidy. But yeah, I wanted to sort of test this one out now, see what service work we need doing to it. A cursory look at it shows that it's in really nice condition overall. As I say, the battery cover is nice and tidy, that clips in solidly, the belt clip is present, the general condition of the silver is actually really nice as well. It's slightly scuffed on the face, on the plastic just there. I'll be able to polish that up a little bit, but I've actually got a spare unit as well here which has got a slightly cleaner plastic on it, which I wouldn't mind using the lid, to be honest, off the front. And also I've just noticed on this one that there's no spring in the hinge. I don't know if the spring itself is missing or damaged or inoperative, so we may be able to sort that out. I can't re-chassis the whole thing because this one has got what does happen to some of these, which is that if the batteries have leaked or if there's any sort of contamination, it gets under the paintwork. Now you might see it looks like it's tarnished, but what it does is it kind of ruins the paintwork on the outside of the case. It doesn't affect the interior usually, but it does mean that I can't sort of repair, well, I can repair this one, but I prefer to have a much cleaner example, as I say. So what we'll do, I think, today is give it a quick test, then see if we can actually replace the hinge lid on this, or at least the spring, and yeah, see what else needs doing. So I think, as they say, without further ado, let's go. So the first thing we'll do is test it, and I've got my JSX37 speakers here to have a quick listen. So we'll put it onto radio, and there we go. I'm going to turn the lights out real quick just to help with the FM. I just wanted to give a cursory check there of the radio. Obviously with headphones which act as an aerial much better, it will work much nicer than that, but I just wanted to check the circuitry was okay and that the FM stereo light was working, which it is. What I have noticed though is that the actual headphone socket is a little bit hit and miss, so I'll just check that with some headphones as well, make sure it's not the speakers. Yeah, it seems marginally better, but I think there's actually perhaps a bit of an issue there with the dry joint on the headphone socket. So we'll have a look at that. What we will do now though is put it onto tape, see if that works. and you might not see that, but you'll hear it. So it is, there we go. It's turning. Fast forward and rewind are also working. So what happens if we put an actual cassette in here? Well, there we go. Good. Alright, definitely needs belts then, so no point doing much else with that. Oh, also I'll just check the mute switch while we're here. Yeah, not bad, needs a bit of a clean. Alright, okay. So I think where we're at then is we need to just check the connection of the headphone socket on the board, clean the momentary mute switch, definitely needs a new belt. We'll clean the head and the capstan and the pinch roller, and potentially we may even replace the lid, and certainly we'll get a spring for this hinge if not. So I think what we'll do now is get the batteries out and start taking it apart. Right, so 4 batteries to come out, 6 volts as I say, and then there are 4 screws. 3 are the same, I think, as each other. So 3 the same, and a longer one just on the corner there. Also we'll unscrew the belt clip as well, easy as that. And then with that done, we can just lift and gently remove the rear cover. Like so. And then to get to the belt on this is really easy actually. There's a single small screw just on the board. And we get that away, and we can rotate the entire lot carefully away, and that reveals the belt. Simple as that. Happy days. Right, I'm just going to have a quick clean up here a minute, and then we'll take a little look at what we're up against. As I say, a lovely little unit really, and you can really kind of work on these. You know, you've got plenty of electrolytics there, you can see kind of what's going on. You've got your AN7223 there, so that's your radio IC just there, and you've got an LA3361, which I think is your FM multiplex or demodulator just there, and then your power amp chip just on the bottom there as well. But everything's kind of easy enough to get to, really nice. But what's really super cool about this is how easy the belt is to get to as well. You can see it's absolutely toast though. If I just spin one of the flywheels. Incidentally, do you remember it said, where's the reference to it on the front cover somewhere? Where did we put that? Oh, it's over here. If I turn the whole thing round, anti-rolling mech. That's basically because you've got dual flywheels here, so you've got a fair bit of mass going on, and the idea is that between the two of them the inertia is enough just to carry on and take up any momentary fluctuations in pressure on the belt. So if you're actually walking along, you're not getting push and pull, push and pull, push and pull on the belt. The two of them between them kind of keep enough inertia to make up for that, like an old, like a primitive anti-jog mechanism, I guess. So anyway, you can see that sort of one of them turns the other one, but that's running fairly freely, so it's obviously had enough. And in Sanyo style as well, you might even see the belt path is printed on the actual circuit board as well, so that's quite handy if the belt's missing or degraded or what have you. Obviously it's fairly easy on this one, it's fairly obvious, but on other units it might not be so obvious, so always helpful to have that. Righty ho, so let's just take a look at this. Alright, the reason I'm doing this now is there is another belt inside there as well actually. That looks like it's running okay. You might just see it just inside, if I just point to it, just there, there is another belt, and that turns the various gears inside. But taking this apart, I've done it for other units, it really really is a nightmare. It's best avoided if at all possible. I think that's a 1.2, possibly a 1.5mm cross section belt, and we shouldn't really need to be replacing that one today, hopefully. So I'm going to just go ahead and put the main drive belt on, and hopefully that'll fix the issue that we've got with it. Also, whilst we're in here, of course, we're going to just clean the switches and pots and stuff as well. So let's get on and do that. So first up, I'm just going to put a little drop of alcohol in the switches, on the pots, on the switches. Nothing major. They really weren't too bad at all. It would just help to clean them up a little bit. You have to avoid strong contact cleaners and stuff on potentiometers because you can damage the carbon tracks on them. So I've literally just put a little drop of alcohol in there, and we'll just work them back and forth a few times and work the switches, and we should be in business with that. So the only thing really we needed to do on the circuit board apart from that was to review the headphone jack. Now, seemed a little bit flaky. The performance of that seemed a little bit sketchy. We might be able to see just the contact points there. If I put some headphones in, actually, we may even, let me just see, we may even see a potentially, well, they look okay. Look okay. Sometimes you can see movement or fractures actually in the traces, but what I'll do is I'll reflow those anyway, and then we'll give it another go, and we'll take it from there. So I'm going to get the soldering iron warmed up and see if I can find a belt to replace this rather unusual shape, and be back in a moment. Right, one job at a time then. Let's just have a look at this headphone socket, see what we can do with that. Well, that may or may not have helped, but we'll give it a go. Obviously there's no belt in there at the moment, so we'll hook up the radio and see whether or not we've made an improvement. Right, we've got headphones in, we've selected radio. We'll get some power in. Obviously it's going to be much easier now to use a multi-adapter. By the way, I did do a video on the multi-adapter that I'm using today, so go do check that one out. Very useful little thing. Right, I'm just going to listen to the headphones a minute. That does seem a lot better. Again, I'm just going to put a little bit of alcohol down there as well. Also, you've got to watch with things like contact cleaner and things here, because you will end up, if you're not careful, actually stripping off the print on the top there. So I'm just going to drop this in a few times, work it around. But definitely that does feel better. Okay, so I've just checked that with a couple of pairs of headphones, and I'm happy now that it's giving me proper stereo. So that's reflowing, that's definitely helped. And right, okay, so the next job then is to try and find a belt for this thing. Okay folks, so the switches are cleaned, the headphone jacket is sorted out, so we've just got to do the belt now. Now, I've just had a rifle through some of my belts, and I can't find, I mean, I've got quite a few here one way or the other. These are all from Deck Tech that I use for all my belts. I'm not sponsored by them, and I often say that you know, I use these guys just because of their impeccable service, really. And the case in point is about to be demonstrated now, I think. The belt that came off is around a 0.8mm cross section, and it's hard to tell because it's so misshapen, but it's around about 68-70mm, something like that. And I don't have, unfortunately, a decent belt of the right size. I've got some that are the right circumference but slightly too thick. I've got others that are the right thickness but slightly too small. So I'm going to have to go and order one up, but for the purposes of demonstration, as it were, what I want to do now is just stick one on that's a cheap belt. And people often say to me, you know, what's the size belt do I need for different Walkmans or boomboxes? And my advice is usually the same. If there is no reference for it, it's definitely worth keeping a bag of really cheap, nasty belts, because not saying you want to use them for running your kit, but it's really good just to get some on there and just get a feel for if one's a bit too big, one's a bit too small. Then once you know exactly what you need, you can go and order a decent one. So as I say, I'm just having a look here. I've got two. One's about a 67mm, one's about a 70mm. So I'm just going to try the smaller one first and put this on. And straight away, that feels quite nice, I've got to say. And I can see that that's pulling. And in fact, might not even be too bad. Now if I go for a 70mm, and to be honest, the original one's reading about 0.9 actually in thickness, so we probably would get away, as it were, with a 1mm. See, that one's slipping. See, that one's not quite biting. So we know that 70 is too big. So this one here that's about 67 is about right. So I'm going to go ahead and order a new belt for this, and they're super good at Deck Tech. So it's around about lunchtime now. I'm going to go and order some real quick, and I'll be here tomorrow. But in real money, that'll be a quick fade here, and I'll be back hopefully with a brand new belt the right size. But I will just interrupt myself there. I've put it back together real quick just to see whether or not it works properly. So we'll just check the leaf switch and everything internally. Press play now. There we go. Good. So I've got left and right are both coming out. So the headphone is sorted. Let me just press the mute switch as well. Yeah. Marvellous. Fast forward and rewind, they're working okay, and play again. Good stuff. We can easily adjust the tape speed incidentally. There's a little semi-variable resistor, or a little pot actually, a little potentiometer just there, so we can adjust all of that when the time comes. Just wanted to make sure that the amp and everything's working nicely, which it is. So yep, go ahead and order up a belt now. And we'll also now look at see if we can do something with this spring for the hinge. So now we need to get this back apart. You've got to screw it down to test it really, because a couple of things. One, you have to make sure that the leaf switch is in the correct position in terms of activating the motor connection. But the other thing is that of course it kind of earths everything down as well. You'll find you'll get a lot of hum and feedback perhaps, or you'll get noise and buzzing if you try and contact any of the metallized parts. So it's always worth screwing it back down before you test it. But anyways, where are we at? So just move this away. Good stuff. Right, so in terms of the hinge then, what does that do? Just having a quick look here. So there's two screws holding the hinge on, which you may or may not see, but there's basically two tiny little screws just in there. And there should be a spring. And is that spring present? Let's have a look. No, it's not. Aha, okay, good. There should be. Now forgive my really bad filming here guys, but there should be a little spring that goes through the tiny hole in the case. Here we go. And through there. Basically I'm just going to go and replace that. I have a donor unit here, so I'm just going to go and see if I can put a new spring. I don't know what happened to the last one. I'm not sure how something like that A comes out and B just disappears. But there you go. So I'm just going to go ahead, salvage that spring from the other unit, put it into there, and yeah, hopefully that'll sort that one. So I've moved the unit we're working on to one side, and I've got the donor one here. So let's see if we can get the mech out to give us access as before. Okay, so let me try and zoom in a bit. And basically the spring is just here. That's going to be fairly tight to get to, I think. And it might be in my interests to see if I can actually screw or unscrew the lid first. So I'm just going to go and find a tiny little screwdriver that will allow me to get into there and get these couple of tiny screws out. Okay folks, so where we got to is I've just ordered up a batch of belts for this. I get a better deal if I buy sort of 4 at a time, so that makes more sense. I've actually replaced the spring there now from the donor one, so that lid operation now snaps in really nicely. You can see that working really well, so that's great. I couldn't actually replace the lid in the end. Now the situation with the lid's a bit of a weird one. This one isn't too bad, and it will polish up, to be fair. It's not the end of the world. I was planning on replacing it with this one, but I've just downloaded the schematic for this one, and even then, even though it gives a complete disassembly, it gives you everything you need wiring wise, circuitry, and the complete disassembly of the mech and all the rest of it, believe it or not, the lid apparently is one piece with the outer casing, and it doesn't even explain or show any pins or any way of removing that. Now I've had a bit of a poke around and couldn't actually get it to come away, so let me know in the comments if you've done that and know how to do it. It could be very simple, it could just need a poke and a prod, but I don't want to force anything, because actually, apart from the spring now missing from the lid on this, yes, it's a bit discoloured, and that's what that rattling is, by the way. It's just that little piece that I took off from the lid inside the battery compartment for safekeeping. But apart from a bit of discoloration on the casing, this one actually would be a perfectly workable example, especially given that I've got a belt on the way for it as well. So I don't want to just smash it up trying to get that off, and even then I might end up breaking this one trying to get that one off anyway. So I'm just going to let sleeping dogs lie, I think, and just polish up the bit we can see here. Everything else is okay. The switches are all cleaned. The belt is tested with the should we say the cheap belt, but then we've got new ones on order for that. So I think what I'm just going to do is, I don't think we've made enough mess, have we, today, because we didn't get to take the rest of that off there, the hinge and what have you. So I think what we'll do instead is remove the mech and clean the head and the capstan and all that sort of stuff. So there's 3 posts here. We'll get these away. 4mm sockets. Right, here we go. Try not to put too much strain on the other wires. We'll press play, and then we should be able, one hopes, just gently trying to withdraw the mech. There we go, like so. There we go, that's got it. Good stuff. So that would just allow us to get in and clean the capstan and the pinch roller and the head. The head itself looks in really nice condition, it has to be said. The gears are okay, no teeth missing or anything like that. So this is literally just going to be a quick zhuzh with some alcohol and a cotton bud, and then we can get it back together again. So the head we can do just here. To be honest, that looks super clean anyway. Probably could have just left it in situ, would have been just as easy. But there we go. But we can get, at least we can get in nice and easy. Capstan's clean as well, to be fair, and I don't reckon this pinch roller's too bad. But I'm just going to go through and clean this up, and also generally just get some dust and what have you out of the actual face of the mech there. But I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Well, there we go, that's a bit better. So just going to gently turn all this back over. There she goes. That's popped back through. We can get the studs back in. Always hard to know how hard to torque those up really when you're plastic on plastic like that, but I think we're okay. Just check the mech's okay. There we go. So as I say, I won't screw this screw into the circuit board here to hold it all back, because in the morning hopefully we'll have a new belt, we can get that on, and that'll be that. But what I will do is just very loosely fit the back cover, just to protect the circuit board whilst we go ahead and just polish this. So I'm just going to get some cutting compound on there, make sure I keep it away from the silver paintwork, and also it looks like the screen printing is on the top on this, so in fact I can feel it, so I'm going to stay well away from that ink. But basically this little bit here can be polished up, so I'm just going to get some masking tape across there, polish up the bit I can see, and dress the rest of it. Right, now just a very quick dress with some plastic cleaner. Give this a bit of a buff up, and then we will literally be ready for the new belts to arrive tomorrow. Get a new one in, and that'll be that. Good stuff. Okay, so next day, this has had a nice bit of a clean and a polish, and yeah, the new belt has arrived, so we'll get this one in, and as before then, basically we're just going to take the back off and then peel away the circuitry, remove the demo belt. As I say, these are well handy, keeping these cheap belts. They're not actually that bad actually, and they can sound really quite good. You can get some good ones, but obviously for decent kit, as I keep saying, and for things that are quite a lot of effort to get to, you want to have a decent belt in there. And there it is. So feels perfect, just enough tension on there, there's no slippage, but it's not too tight and it won't bind up the motor either. So let's get this back together. And we fold this in. Just make sure that the leaf switch is in the correct place as well, so that that will activate. There's a tiny hole through there, and you can just make sure that the push buttons are activating the switch to engage the motor. And what else? That's it really. Just make sure as well that your switch caps are in the right place and on there. Nothing worse than putting it all back together and finding a switch cover there, and you've got to take it apart to refit it. So just a cursory check of all the alignment of the knobs and switches and stuff. There we go. So I think all that remains is to get the small screw, the earthing screw, back into here, and we're almost there. So we've got some power here. We've got 6 volts DC, negative pin, and we'll go to tape. Put some headphones in. There we go. Bit of the chain there by Fleetwood Mac. Marvellous. Good. So we're getting stereo, and then rewind and fast forward. Nice and strong. Beautiful. Can't play you too much, obviously, for content matching purposes, but there we go then. So, looks like it's all working nicely. I'll just check the batteries again, just to make sure they're all okay. And a cursory play of the volume control, no crackle, balance, one side to the other, and the mute switch. Yeah, that's okay. And tone was working as well. So yeah, all in all sorted and pretty much good as new. So there we go then. There's the Sanyo MG32 radio cassette player. Didn't need too much doing, just a general service really. It's had a new belt in there. We've given it a going over, lubricated a little bit, cleaned the head, the capstan, the pinch roller, just generally giving it a bit of a zhuzh and a bit of a polish. So happy days, pleased with that. But there we go then. So there it is. So I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you found it useful. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. We've got loads of Walkmans, boom boxes, 8-tracks, vintage games, all kinds of stuff really on the channel. So it'd be great if you can come along for the ride. We have some cool stuff on here. Thank you very much indeed for your support. For those that already subscribed, much appreciated. I shall see you soon, but in the meantime, take care, stay safe. All the best for now. Bye bye.